I was trying to fiddle with the light right before this, and we got distracted because I couldn't turn it on, and then it randomly came on by itself.
There we go. We get an audio balance going on. Okay, hopefully that's not too loud in everyone's ear. I'll crank that down just a smidge. What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever Cocktails and Convos podcast. Woo! Yay! I'm so excited. So, how do I job? Oh, that would have been a great title. Damn it. See, you guys have all the best ideas. I'm just trying to keep up with you. Let me know if the music's too loud, too quiet. I figure I'd give us some music. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get game footage to be able to kind of play down there while we're talking and mix it up with, you know, like the bullet points and stuff that we're talking about because they were fixing the roof. So... that got taken away. I expect royalties for this name. Dude, if I ever make a penny off of YouTube, I'm happy to split it. Unfortunately, ad revenue is just not where it's at. But I'm very excited for this. We've been talking about this for, God, what, 2 months, I think?
I feel like it's been longer.
I know, right?
We've been seriously talking about it for
We've been
2 months.
seriously
We've been
talking
about
for
it for like 2 years.
That's true. So, and the whole goal of it, you know, is... mostly to have fun and also to give you guys, like, you know, helpful stuff from our range of experiences and, you know, give you guys a place to talk, to ask questions, to, you know, just to hang out and have fun because it's a Friday night. And yeah, who do we have in chat? What is up to Ramses? Congrats on first, Alma and Uber. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, it's the cat.
Again with that
Kitty with some cuddles.
She is such a brat.
Kisses.
Okay.
Oh man. So tonight the theme. Well, I have to before. Fuck that. Before we get into that, let's drink. God damn it. That's what we do. Cheers.
Beverage. If it's water, that's okay, because it's
Even
hot
better.
as shit.
Yeah. It's still fucking hot here in Arizona. What the damn hell?
Yeah. The weather's all over the place.
It is.
We got rain and it was nice, but then we got mosquitoes with West Nile, so not so nice. And I'm covered in bug bites, which is
When
like,
did we get that?
West Nile's always been here, but
Aw,
it's like
son
in
of a
Zika,
bitch.
but like now people are still worried about COVID. I'm like, fuck COVID. I'm worried about West Nile right now. So like 1 in 5 have to like go to the hospital or something like that.
Oh, that's
So,
wonderful. Look of all the other
yeah.
problems we have. Let's just throw that into the mix. My God.
It's like the 10 plagues. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Wait, Arizona has weather other than heat? Yes, actually, winter is really nice around here. Like, you can wear shorts. It's beautiful, except at night. At night, in the winter, it is cold, because the desert's all about the extremes. You get the hot, and you get the cold. And you can die in either. So, that's why Arizona's wonderful. Oh, yeah, so tonight we asked you guys for some recommendations, and we're starting off with, I just graduated, help, I need a job, it's 2021. I'm working on some better titles, but I thought, given our experiences, like, I've been more on the job hunting side, she's actually been more on the interviewing side, like being the interviewer, and we put together some recommendations to give you guys, hopefully a good jump start, because not only are a lot of you of that, you know, college age where you're now stepping out into, you know, getting your first job, but 2020 really flipped the script for a lot of people when it came to interviewing. And there's some challenges, but there's some really big opportunities that I'd love to share with you guys. And actually, I have to blush a little bit because my sister, I don't know if you meant for them to not tell me, but mom and dad said, like, yeah, you know, your sister's so proud of you because she said that you always find a way to get a job.
Oh, yeah, that's why. Well, I always say that because Melissa, you know, she's got a rough go with her career, and it's not her fault. And she always stresses out about it, which is fair. I totally get stressing about it, but I'm like, you always get a job. You always, you work hard at it, too. And, like...
Thank you.
Yeah, you probably work better than I would, to be honest. But she, like, wakes up and she applies to 3 every single day, and, like... And I'm just like, you'll get a job because you've done it before. Like, when are you going to trust yourself to do it?
You would think, like, because I did the math in my head. I've had 18 jobs since I started actually, like, not counting babysitting gigs or anything like that. Since I first started, I had to fill out a W-2. I've had 18 jobs. Soon to be 19, hopefully.
Definitely.
Emmy, what up? But that's why I'm so happy to have Lisa on this one, because she actually has more experience with interviewing people.
Unfortunately, sometimes I've just been at my new job. They found out that I can be an interviewer, and I'm getting pinged constantly. And I'm like, what about coding? I miss that.
Like, can I just go back to my regular day job?
Of not coding because I'm in meetings. Yeah.
Right?
But now I'm in meetings where I have to... Anyways, we can talk about that more later, but it might actually be, I don't know if you had it planned, but it might be good to do like a little intro in terms of where our experiences are.
Yeah, let's do that.
From. Do you want to kick it off? Or
yes.
As much as we can do without getting doxxed.
Yeah, I know, right?
We'll play it a little close to the heart.
Biker Bob, what's up, dude?
Hey, Biker Bob, how's it going?
Yes, 18 jobs. And before we get into that, I just wanted to finish that last thought. I gotta get better at podcasting, I swear.
We literally just started.
We literally just started. But everything, it's always playing in my head how people are, interpreting this. One of the most amazing things about Lisa is that she is always an advocate for people. She's an advocate for diversity. She's an advocate, especially for, women in the genre that you're in. I don't know if you want to share.
You can say tech industry.
More.
I was going to say tech industry. Because that's basically where my experience is going to come from. And I know that doesn't represent all the industries we could go into. So I would say keep that in your mind. I was going to be my disclaimer of like, this is my experience. I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody, and et cetera, but we can get into that later.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn the audio down just a smidge because some of these songs can be a little loud. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, so, it's a great idea. Let's talk about our background. Do you want to start?
So, in my situation, let's see, I got a bachelor's in computer science, so I was very privileged to be able to go to college. It helped to go to a school that I had residency in, so that made a big difference. And when I applied to it, I was like, what's going to basically get me a job? So, Paul, that's why you and I got to meet, was because I was like, literally looking at my application. I almost picked chemistry, and then I was like, I don't know if I could do chemistry. And I changed it last second before hitting that submit button. Yeah, to computer science. I'm like, well, I like video games. I never coded. Maybe it'll work. So, again, privileged, because I got lucky on that one, because I didn't know if I could actually code. But yeah, so did that, and then went into industry with an internship, which, yeah, here's the thing about college is like once you get the first job, college doesn't matter anymore. So
that's actually
literally
very true.
Like it helps set up foundation for you, but after your first job, they
don't care,
or they shouldn't care.
Well, unless you're like going in to be a doctor or a lawyer, like those people weirdly still seem to care about, oh, which school did you go to? Depends on how I can actually reattach an arm. It doesn't give a fuck if I went to University of Phoenix, okay?
Yeah, it's just computer science are like, you have a bachelor's, good job, let's go. It just makes me laugh when I start seeing job recs. They're like, oh, master's preferred. I'm like, fuck off. You don't need a master's. So, anyways, so yeah, in my time, in my career, I've had 3 jobs, all within the tech industry. What do I want to say to that too? As part of, when I was, my second job, I actually kicked off a diversity inclusion team. We had those at our company, but we didn't have anything local, and I worked in a very small remote office. And so, that's where a lot of the kind of going to like research and understand diversity and inclusion but better. And that, I would say I did also at that job get looped into interviewing for the first time, and I'll talk more about that later, but I have done interviews. I've done probably more than I want to admit. But I think it is important, and I can definitely go into that later, but I think that covers it for me.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's really cool, especially to know, because we all get so focused because we sit on one side of the table interviewing. It's always great to know, like, what is the other person thinking?
What should they be thinking? I'll talk about that later too.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait.
And I'm not even talking about unconscious bias. It's like this is just before that too. So.
So my background, I kind of lucked into it as well. It was a family friend who had a like low level opening at a software company, and they got me in, and it was like sales support. But I moved a lot during the initial part, and then I got into sales, which I really hated, because, like, do you want this? No? Okay, cool. That does not support you at all in sales. But what I found I really loved was in the mechanisms behind selling, like how to get a deal together in the system, who to call when something goes wrong. I love solving problems for other people. And so my manager's like, oh, you should start a sales operations division. I'm like, what's that? She's like, exactly what you're doing. I said, cool. All right. Awesome. And it's been my geeky love ever since. Like, it had someone said, oh, you should be in sales operations before then, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's been a lot of the challenge, and why I've been through about 18 jobs, is that it's a very fledgling kind of industry, and it takes on very different forms, and it doesn't get a lot of support in terms of headcount securing. So yeah, you tend to get really good at interviewing, or you kind of get moved over into sales. So I've managed teams. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. It sounds like I'm doing an interview right now. I've worked for startups. I love the startup area, because then it's like you get to play in so many different things and do so many different things that it's just more fun than, coming in and making the donuts every day. Someone else made up the recipe. You just come in like, all right, cut, dip, there, kill me.
Sometimes I wish for that job though, because I have like the opposite, where I'm like, today is one of those, my brain is dead and I don't want to think anymore, so I'm gonna have a beer and sit down and talk to you guys. It's gonna sound like, it sounds like your job is I know it has technical skills because of the tools that you have to use.
Oh yeah, like I have to set up Salesforce and manage that.
But it sounds heavily involved with soft skills in terms of like adding process, or like introducing process, trying to find efficiency. I feel like, and this could be its own talk, but like soft skills are hard to measure, and so because of that, people know they're valuable, but it tends not to be promotable work, or people tend not to understand it. So I'm not surprised that people aren't getting your role, even though it is important. And there's times where I look at my company right now, and because they're newish, being like, I want to fix everything, but if I do that, I'm definitely not going to be an engineer anymore. So
I keep trying to talk her into managing, because I think she'd be amazing, because she has that awareness for soft skills. But I know her passion is coding. Appalachian Fishing Club, what's up, dude? Jonathan Cooper, how are you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yes, Biker Bob prefers being retired. I imagine I would go stir crazy.
I got lucky to be, well, between my current job, I was lucky to have like a month off in between. And I felt like, if this is what being retired is like, I actually kind of like it. I just picked up like random odd jobs. I was like working with the distillery, helping fix their tech and stuff. And it was just like, I like this. This is nice. Get to use my software engineering skills for good, finally.
It's like, I just want to be in a rocking chair yelling at kids in my yard.
I did go on walks with Dad a lot during that time, and also played Pokemon Go a lot. I was like, I can go out and enjoy the sun. Oh my god!
What's the hot ball of fire in the sky?
Coincidentally, yeah, it was February, so it wasn't boiling hot outside.
Oh, that's always nice. Cool. Okay, so for our little chat tonight, I kind of broke them down so you can see down below in my horrible ghetto way of making buttons. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about. Now, it's going to be very hard for you to see, so that's why I had to write myself some cheat notes here.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
Yeah,
I have not seen any of this, so I'm just gonna wing it.
I was trying to get this together to send it over to you actually last night to be like, hey, here's what I got. If you want to add anything,
I'm just gonna talk, so it's fine.
Yes, we'll have a whole podcast on time management and how to stop procrastinating, because I'm a professional procrastinator.
I probably am too.
Yeah, and we have some suggestions around that as well. We don't always follow our own guidance, but it is some handy tips and tricks. Get to work at a distillery. I'm jealous. I haven't.
It was like tangential.
Yeah.
It's a distillery I'm working on making a gin with, so that's kind of why. And I was just like,
that's so awesome.
Yeah, just sit down, and they're like, oh, my computer's not working. I'm like, I'm technically jobless right now, so let me help, because I have nothing going on. It was really nice. It kind of makes me want to like Yeah, I think once I get tired of like working for companies, I think I would like to start my own IT business where I just help out small businesses.
You should totally do that. You'd make bank.
I'm just not business minded. That's the only thing. So, but maybe someday.
Very cool. So to kick us off, let's talk about how basically applying for jobs has really changed thanks to the pandemic. So one of the biggest problems that a lot of companies ran into is that, okay, holy shit, we have a virus we have to deal with. We got to keep people safe. Everyone's got to work remote. First of all, they were trying to just struggle with that, which I cannot begin to convey how much of teeth pulling and just you gotta rip people across the finish line, because prior to that, a lot of managers, the only way that they knew that you were working is if they could see you at your desk. And that got taken away from them completely. So some of them were going way overboard, like, well, I want video to watch them working.
Creepy.
Like, yeah, they were gonna do that at my last job. Like, no. So it basically had to kind of like retrain the trainers and train managers on how to actually manage their people. But it did open up a new opportunity, which is now interviewing remote, because a lot of jobs, well, no, let's say a lot, more jobs than before can now be done remotely, which is godsend. It is so nice. It does require a lot on yourself to make sure that you're stay on top of things, because you're at home and there's handy distractions nearby. But it does open up interviewing remote, which is actually a huge plus to you as the interviewee. And I'm going to show you a couple of tricks that I use that have actually worked really well to my advantage. So, let's start off. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need a setup. So you need a computer with a good webcam, you need a microphone, whether it's built in, but one of the things that I highly recommend to people is to get yourself a little lamp and put it at eye level. And the reason for this is for a lot of, and this is where being a YouTuber has actually trained me really well. A lot of us, we have lights that come down from overhead, which means you get really dark shadows. Sometimes, depending on the time of the day, like they can't even see your face. You look tired. You look sullen.
I get like the evil mastermind in my room, because like I have the light coming from the side, so like half my face is in darkness.
Right.
So I get the cat in the lap, and I'm just like, yes, tell me more. Tell me more about your database schema,
plan, Mr. Bond. But what you guys can't see when we live stream, it's poor Lisa. It's kind of painful. There are two lights that are pointed like
so
directly
bright
at our eyes, so that way you
get.
don't get the horrible eye bags. You don't get the shadows. It makes you look better on camera for YouTube, and also makes you look better when you're interviewing. And you'd be surprised, a lot of even interviewers don't take into consideration a lot of this stuff, but as a YouTuber, you're now looking at everyone who's interviewing you. You have no background, you have horrible lighting, you don't even plug in headphones when you're talking, so I'm hearing echo. Thank you, YouTube, for teaching me how to be a better interviewer. And speaking of which, always, you guys gotta use headphones. The reason for that is your mic and your speakers are coming out of the same place. So your laptop doesn't know how to differentiate between you talking into it and the sound coming out of it. So what you're going to have happen is that the speakers will play and it will reverberate back into the microphone. It means now you have an echo. And anyone who's been on a Zoom meeting knows you never want to be that person with the echo, because it just drags a meeting full stop. Like, everyone, just fucking plug in your headphones. So I think that probably more than YouTube.
Something else to keep in mind too, because this happened in my last interview, as in I was the one interviewing for this position. Make sure you don't have a microphone plugged in, because I didn't realize. I was going from my desktop, and my desktop has a standalone microphone I bought in case like we did streaming. And I will say the standalone microphones, they tend to help with that. So, if you know, for whatever reason, if you can or don't have headphones, having the microphone be away from the computer, if it's good, it will actually handle it for you.
Yes.
And there's software settings too sometimes that can help determine how much of the background noise to include or throw out, and that can make a difference. But in my case, I was the dumbass that left the headphones plugged in with the microphone on it. So I had my headphones with the microphone sitting off to the side.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I was I think 4 out of 5 when I finally realized that, like, oh, this is why people can't hear me that well, because I've not been using my actual standalone mic this whole time. So yeah, double check that. Don't do it, Lisa.
You always gotta check to make sure where your sources are, because sometimes, especially we've seen it here, like every fifth stream, it's like, oh, you have a microphone? Like, yes, you know I have a microphone. It just conveniently decides to forget.
Yeah.
Ay. Now, one of the biggest benefits, because I know a lot of people struggle with this, like I struggle with this. I am an introvert. I know you wouldn't believe it. But I have a hard time maintaining eye contact, even with people that I know. For some reason, it just bugs me so much. And, I always stress with that in interviews. Like, it takes a lot of my focus to sit down and maintain eye contact and not look to different corners and not look at my hands.
I look at myself.
Yeah,
right? Like, ooh, look, I'm on camera.
Oh, and then you get you're like, oh, I gotta fix my hair. I gotta fix everything. Lord of Cancer, what's up, dude? However, when you're interviewing remote, you do have a benefit, and that benefit is that you don't have to make eye contact with the interviewer, you have to make eye contact with your camera. And that spares a lot of you fellow introverts, because your camera, for most of your laptops, is sitting on the top of your monitor. So you don't even have to look at your interviewer. You're looking at the camera, and what the interviewer is seeing is that it looks like to the interviewer that you're maintaining eye contact with them. So for all of you extroverts, I know this may not be an issue, but for those of you guys who are like me, who really struggle to be able to make eye contact, just look at that white dot that's at the top of your laptop, and you are maintaining eye contact without even having to look at the interviewer. And it goes a long way to kind of help calm yourself down, not feeling so tight and tense and like, oh my god, they're judging me.
Some people just are uncomfortable with eye contact too.
It's true.
It's like, get around that one.
Mm-hmm. What about you when it comes to eye contact?
I mean, I've trained myself to probably more that, so I'm making it uncomfortable because I'm just like, ooh, stare. But well, I work in an industry with a lot of introverted people as well, so I'm probably the one, when I actually make eye contact with them, I'm probably making them uncomfortable. Something else to think about too, it's eye contact, but also I've learned this in a recent presentation they actually did in my office. Sitting far enough away from the camera so you can actually see your hands if you have them, and also your chest up, because if you're closer to the camera, it actually makes people feel uncomfortable.
It seems like you're bearing down
because
on
you're
them.
In their face, right? If I did this, yeah, it's like, dear God, get away from me. So, and that transcribes to also being on camera too.
When you do that.
Yeah. Well, good news. I'm not going to do it again ever. I wasn't intended to in the first place, but yeah. So something like that can make a big difference too, in just terms of setting a very nice, comfortable setting.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you guys as well. Feel free to put comments in chat. Is this something that you guys struggle with too? Do you guys have any tips or tricks? We are going to go back, after these chapters and kind of catch up a little bit. Some good news. SkyWest is going through applicants. Hopefully I can get that. Awesome. Ooh. Well, hopefully some of these things can help, I hope. All right. The biggest cheat that I've found. Set up a cheat sheet. Now, I'm actually going to jump ahead a little bit. So I want to show you. This is my interviewing setup. So I have my laptop here. I actually have it boosted up a little bit. It's sitting on top of a cat toy. Only because I like a camera to be either at eye level or just a little bit above, because it makes you look like a little bit slimmer. It's a more flattering look than when you're looking up someone's nostrils. I have my little notepad over there in the corner. I have my lamp that has a nice cool toned white. There's cool toned and there's yellow toned. You don't want yellow toned. That's pointed right here, so that way, I always look fresh faced. And then over in the corner, I don't know if you can see, I bought myself a little whiteboard. And what I do is I put together what they're looking for and what I have in my experience that matches that. So what I can do while I'm interviewing is, they ask me a question. And let's say I need to refer to a project that I did that talks to exactly what they're looking for, but I don't remember like what that translated to in terms of the amount of sales. I can say, well, when I was back at, I'm checking the note, and then I'm coming right back to the camera. So it looks like a very natural movement. I have a way to be able to double check my facts, and no one's the wiser because it's sitting right behind my camera.
Yeah, that's definitely, I thought that was really, really well done of you.
Thank you.
A couple things on that, and maybe you'll end up talking about these later. Cause
sure.
Apologies, I didn't see the slides.
I didn't send them to you.
Yeah,
so
no, it's fine.
That's fair.
But I didn't even ask. I'm a bad person. But so it's good to reference it. Just make sure you're not looking like you're obviously reading from it.
Yes.
Some interviewers don't care. It actually came up in one of my recent interviews where we're like, yeah, the person was reading off notes, but it was like, it wasn't anything technical. It was about like its experience. And we talked about it and we all agreed like it wasn't a concern. As I'll probably end up talking about later, not all interviewers are created equally. And so some people might be bad about it. So just keep that in mind. The other thing too is you don't have to respond back right away in an interview question. Like you can take a moment to think about it.
That's a good point.
And sometimes just repeating the question first to buy yourself that time, that could also be a good one to be like, let me think about that for a second. And you like thinking, but I'm looking.
Checking.
Yeah, because I'm bad with numbers. So
Same.
like if I was in your position, I'd have to use notes because I would forget. But then I probably wouldn't get the job because I'm not good with numbers. So
yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So when you have to buy yourself some time, because I think that's a great point to, you don't feel pressured that you have to respond immediately. What are a couple of options that you found? Like, well, let me think about that. Are there a couple more that people could use to kind of tell the interviewer like that you're give me a second, and then in a way that makes it conversational?
I mean, this is hard for me to give feedback on because frankly I don't care. Like I'm not hiring people for